Hello, my name is Cheyenne Davis. I'm a student at Webster University, and today I will be reading my paper, Dismantling Amatonormativity in Hawthorne's The Maypole of Merrymount. Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Maypole of Merrymount captures a historic tale and a dramatic retelling following the fate of two lovers, Edgar and Edith. The Puritans interrupt Edgar and Edith's wedding ceremony to conquer the Merrymounters and destroy the corrupted way of life. Finding the couple redeemable, they assimilate them into Puritan culture and spare them the same punishment they forced the other Merrymounters to endure. However, the very relationship celebrated by the Merrymounters and the Puritans falls under society's crushing hold on romantic relationships, amatonormativity. Coined by Elizabeth Brake, professor of philosophy at Rice University, amatonormativity describes the, quote, disproportionate focus on marital and amorous love relationships as special sites of value and the assumption that romantic love is a universal goal, end quote. Brake argues, quote, the belief that marriage and companion romantic love has special value leads to overlooking the value of other caring relationships, end quote. She recognizes society's strict upholding of a relationship hierarchy as negative, not romantic love itself. Didactic romantic relationships outweigh all other types of relationships to the point that they are, quote, normative and that they should be aimed at in preference to other relationship types, end quote. Brake shows how society rejects, ignores, or dismisses any relationship that deviates from the romantic norm. Marriages, for example, provide legal and moral rights not distributed to other close relationships. This affects a variety of people, including identities under the queer umbrella, asexual and aromantic individuals, polygamist, or close friends. It also affects and harms those seeking romantic relationships because it makes a monogamous relationship a priority even at the expense of other relationships. Consider, for example, stereotypes often associated with singles, the Spencer cat lady or the incompetent man-child. Single people are regarded as immature and irresponsible even if they have fulfilling non-amorous relationships. Brake insists that, quote, rejecting amatonormativity does not mean discouraging amorous relationships. It means ceasing to encourage them at the expense of other caring relationships, end quote. By value of their relationship being romantic, Edith and Edgar experience amatonormativity. Specifically, these instances sort into three parts. Firstly, the story never defines their relationship, because we already know that they must be romantic since they are together. Secondly, because they are a couple, the dominant society celebrates their relationship and holds them higher than any other individual. Thirdly, the Puritans integrate them into their society because of their utility as a couple. Without calling attention to it, we often miss how the relationship hierarchy plays a role in everyday life, including in fiction. Because of the assumption that romantic love is the highest form of love, the story never defines Edith and Edgar's relationship. We never see their specific intricacies that make a relationship, but we know it must be romantic because friendship would be culturally invisible. Nothing about Edgar and Edith is inherently and solely romantic. When the Puritans attack, they find, quote, an air of mutual support and of pure affection, seeking aid and giving it, that showed them to be man and wife, end quote. In what ways is mutual support, pure affection, or giving and receiving aid only romantic? Do friends not also support and love one another? Do family members not give and receive aid from one another? The Puritans see love and automatically know it must be romantic, because that is the only love worth celebrating to them. Of course, there is an objection to be made, since the Puritans interrupted their marriage ceremony, an undeniably romantic commemoration. But what we know of the Merrymounters reveals their marriage to be nothing more than a celebration among a celebratory people. The narrator explains that, quote, the wedlock was more serious than most affairs of Merrymount, end quote, offering a moment to think this is something unusual and special, that even a people known to never find real happiness would find a realness in. But Merrymount is, quote, where jest and delusion, trick and fantasy, keep a continual carnival, end quote. Nothing about their celebrations are implied to be substantial. Instead, quote, the Lord and Lady of the May, end quote, were playing a role in the latest game and their titles must be laid down at sunset, end quote. The only long-lasting effect of their ceremony was that they were, quote, to be partners for the dance of life, end quote. Undeniably an important title, but only the amateur normative viewer society lends us would mean it must be romantic. While the Marymounters uplift Edith and Edgar for the day, nothing indicates that this privilege or treatment will continue for their lifetime. Because the Puritans destroy Marymount, we will never know the societal structure. We do, however, understand and know what intentions the Puritans have with Edith and Edgar, creating a familial unit to produce children and provide services to the community. Quote, the difficult path which was their lot to tread. End quote. According to Brakes, quote, the privilege accorded by amatonormativity is that the privileged relationships are given family status, end quote. But the force used against Edith and Edgar and the lack of will on their part shows this privilege as more punishment than gain. It is the chains that lock them into servitude of the Puritans. Endicott, the quote, severest Puritan of all, end quote, leads the charge against the Marymounters. He is the epitome of Puritanism, harsh, cold, and lashing out in the name of God. He is also the first to identify Edith and Edgar as a romantic pair worth cherishing. Endicott's heart moves towards mercy because he automatically assumes that Edith and Edgar are romantic lovers. The brutal, unforgiving man destroys the Maypole, mocks the Marymounters in their defeat, and punishes the Marymounters for living their own lives. Yet, when he sees the couple, quote, the Iron Man was softened, end quote. Endicott is one that, quote, lifted the wreath of roses from the ruin of the Maypole and threw it over the heads of the Lord and the Lady of the May, end quote, thereby sealing their position in Puritan society as a married couple. Endicott is not moved to mercy only because of young love. He sees their potential uses from the gender roles their relationships force upon them. In Edgar, he finds, quote, qualities in the youth which make him valiant to fight and sober to toil and pious to pray, end quote. Regardless of Edgar's personal belief or opinions, because he is an able-bodied man with a wife to bear his children, he will be a great Puritan. In Edith, Endicott finds she will, quote, become a mother in our Israel, bringing up babes in better nurture than her own hath been, end quote. Because as a woman, her purpose is to breed. Of course, these gender roles would apply to anyone in Puritan society, yet we only see it applied to Edith and Edgar of the Marymounters, because they are coupled up, ensuring that they will use one another to fulfill their purpose in society. They never live as individuals, nor as a couple of young adults who care for and love one another. They only live as a paradigm of a relationship for the Puritans to exemplify. Although the Puritans spare Edith and Edgar, their friends, family, and other villagers are mutilated and abused. Only in their relationship did they differ from other Marymounters. This reveals the Puritans' biases against single individuals or other relationships not considered important. Brake explains that those not in enduring amorous relationships are judged as incomplete, immature, and irresponsible, end quote. These individuals would not fit into the strict, rigid Puritan society, but Edith and Edgar, who transcend the stigma attached to Marymounters, become valuable assets. If Edith and Edgar were merely close, loving friends, the Puritans would have punished them just as harshly as the other Marymounters. They would have endured physical brutality along with their peers. In this way, the relationship spares them. Because they are valued as a couple, they have a lifetime of suffering ahead of them. Edith and Edgar serve as a warning to us all. Their happiness is tossed aside in favor of society's desire to capitalize on their relationship. If allowed to exist for themselves, we would know more about them. Even as a pair, we know nothing about them. Their romance is contingent on celebration or utility. Amatonormativity contains Edith and Edgar. It is a vice that controls them throughout the story. Outside of a special occasion or fear for their lives, we never see how they love each other. But these moments show us a lot. We see Edith and Edgar lean on one another in times of need. Edgar understands Edith's fear during their wedding and acknowledges them and tries to comfort her. Edith, when Endicott threatens Edgar, puts her life on the line to spare his. There is no doubt that they care for one another, or that they love each other. However, without having to contain their relationship in a strict set of rules or expectations, Edith and Edgar would grow beyond, quote, the difficult path, end quote, they tread. Thank you very much.